So you've decided to buy a new TV. You're excited, you walk into the store, or you start scrolling online, and bam, you're hit with this wall of acronyms and weird marketing terms. It's a lot. It can feel super overwhelming, right? Well, don't worry. In this explainer, we are going to cut right through all that noise. Oh, yeah, you've seen these. I know you have. OLED, QLED, Mini LED, and then you've got Neo QLED, ULED, QNED. What is going on? It's enough to make your head spin. Every brand has its own special name for its tech, and you're just sitting there thinking, I just want a good TV. Well, you've come to the right place. Let's figure this out. Okay, deep breath. Let's just forget all of that jargon for a minute. The single most important thing you need to know, and I mean this, is that underneath all that marketing, there are really only two fundamental types of TV technology on the market today. That's it. Just two. So what's the difference between them? It's actually incredibly simple. It all boils down to one single thing, and that's light. How a TV makes its own light is the fundamental difference that separates every single TV you can buy. So here it is, the big secret. On one side, you have LCD TVs, which you'll also see called LED TVs. Same thing. Just think of them as having a big flashlight behind the screen, a backlight that shines through the pixels to make the picture. On the other side, you have OLED. And OLED TVs, they have no backlight at all. Every single tiny pixel lights itself up. And that one little difference, well, it changes absolutely everything. Okay, so let's start with LCDs, because honestly, that's what most TVs out there are. And the best way to think about them is to picture a ladder. Every step you take up this ladder adds a new piece of tech that makes the picture better and better, starting from the most affordable and climbing all the way to the top. Down here on the bottom rung of our ladder, you've got your basic direct lit LED TV. This is your entry point. It's got a grid of lights behind the screen that are pretty much always on. Now, the big trade-off here is that since the light never fully turns off, a dark scene in a movie might look more like a dark gray instead of a true deep black. But hey, it's a perfect choice if you're on a tight budget or you just need a great TV for a bedroom. Okay, let's take a step up the ladder to something called full array local dimming, or FALT. This is a super clever fix for that gray-black problem. Instead of one big light that's always on, the backlight is now broken up into different zones. These zones can dim down or even turn off all by themselves. So if you're watching a scene with a bright moon in a dark night sky, the TV can turn off the zones behind the sky, making it way, way darker. It gives the picture so much more pop. Now we're climbing higher, and things are getting really cool. The next step is to add a layer of these teeny tiny things called quantum dots. You'll see this marketed as QLED. These amazing little particles basically take the blue light from the backlight and supercharge it, turning it into incredibly pure and vibrant colors. The result? A way brighter, more colorful, more lifelike picture. If you watch a lot of modern shows and movies in HDR on Netflix, this is the tech you're looking for. And this is where all those crazy brand names come from. So if you see Samsung talking about Neo QLED or Hisense with ULED, Sony with TrueLuminos, LG with QNED, don't let it confuse you. It's all just marketing. The bottom line is, if you see any of these names, it just means the TV is using that awesome quantum dot technology we just talked about to make the colors and brightness better. Simple as that. And here we are at the very top of the LCD ladder, Mini LED. The name kind of gives it away. They took the LEDs in the backlight and made them microscopic. So instead of having maybe a few hundred dimming zones, you now have thousands of them. This gives the TV pinpoint, precise control over the light, making bright parts of the image incredibly bright and dark parts incredibly dark, all right next to each other. This is the absolute best that LCD technology has to offer right now. So let's just do a super quick recap of that climb. We started with the basic LED, perfect for a budget. Then we added local dimming to get better contrast. After that, we threw in some quantum dots for way better color. And finally, we shrunk those LEDs down to mini LEDs for the best brightness and control you can get. See? It's a pretty clear progression. Okay, so that's the whole world of LCD and its ladder of improvements. But what about that other type of TV? Well, that brings us to OLED. And for years, OLED has been seen as the gold standard for picture quality, especially if you're a big movie fan. And the reason why is so simple, but it's so powerful. Remember, there is no backlight. Each and every one of the millions of pixels on the screen makes its own light. That means when part of the picture needs to be black, the pixels in that area just switch off completely. Not dark gray, not kind of dim, but perfect, absolute inky black. This creates what they call an infinite contrast ratio, and it's what gives OLED that stunning cinematic look that people just rave about. Now, of course, even in the fancy world of OLED, there are a couple of flavors. Most OLEDs you see are what's called WOLED. This is the tried and true, amazing technology that we've had for years. It's fantastic. But the newest evolution is stuff like QD-OLED, which actually adds a layer of quantum dots to an OLED panel, or Tandem OLED, which stacks layers. And what's the point? It's all about pushing the brightness and color vibrancy even further, to levels we've never seen before. But of course, no tech is perfect, right? We have to be honest here. The pros for OLED are huge, those perfect blacks, that unbelievable contrast. But there are trade-offs. They usually cost more, and while they get brighter every single year, the absolute brightest mini LED TVs can still get brighter. And then there's the small risk of something called burn-in. If you left a static logo on the screen for hundreds and hundreds of hours, it could leave a faint ghost behind. It's rare for most people, but it is something to know.
Whew, okay, that was a lot of tech talk. So let's bring this all home and answer the only question that really matters. Which one of these TVs is the right one for you? Let's make this super simple. If your main priority is just getting the best value, or you need a solid TV for a spare room, a basic LED or an entry-level QLED is a fantastic choice. Now, if your living room is really bright with lots of windows, the incredible brightness of a mini LED TV is going to be your best friend. It'll just power through that glare. For anyone who loves the ultimate movie night in a dark room, any kind of OLED is going to give you that jaw-dropping, cinematic picture you're craving. And finally, if you just want the best of the best, no compromises, look for those advanced QD-OLED or Tandem OLED models.
So there you have it. No more confusion. You now know that it all comes down to just two types of TVs. One with a backlight and one without. And you know how the technology on that LCD ladder gets better with each step. You officially have the knowledge to make a great choice. So the only question left is, which one of these amazing technologies is going to light up your world?
Welcome to The Debate. It is January 2026, and I want you to picture a scenario that, well, I think everyone listening has experienced this recently. You walk into a massive electronics store. You're just looking for a new TV. You've got your credit card ready, you're excited, and then you hit the wall. The wall of acronyms.
Oh, it's a nightmare. It's absolutely hostile to the consumer right now.
It really is. You've got QLED, Neo QLED, ULED-X, and now this year's darling, Tandem OLED. It feels less like shopping for entertainment and more like studying for a physics exam. But if you cut through all that noise, all that marketing fluff, there is a massive fundamental battle happening for the soul of the living room right now.
That sounds dramatic, but you're not wrong. It's a turf war.
For the last decade, the hierarchy was simple. If you had the money and you cared about picture quality, you bought an OLED. It was the king, the gold standard. But here we are in 2026, and I think we have to ask a question that would have been, well, heresy 3 years ago. Is the king dead? Has the evolution of LCD technology, specifically mini LED, reached a point where the perfect technology is actually the wrong choice for the average user?
I'm going to go a step further. I don't think the king is dead. I think he's been evicted from the living room. For like 90% of people, buying an OLED in 2026 is like buying a race car to drive in bumper-to-bumper traffic. It's the wrong tool for the job.
Now that is the kind of fighting words I expect. Look, I'm still standing firm on the hill that OLED, and especially the new generations we're seeing this year, is the only choice for someone who actually cares about visual fidelity. If you want to see what the director filmed, you need OLED.
And I'm here to argue that mini LED isn't just a budget alternative anymore. It's the durability tank, it's the light cannon, it's the technology that actually fits into people's messy, bright, chaotic lives.
All right, well, let's get into the mechanics of this, because I don't want to just throw buzzwords around. We need to explain why these camps are so divided. I'll start with my side of the aisle. The magic of OLED, organic light-emitting diode, has always been one simple thing: self-emissive pixels.
Each pixel is its own little light bulb.
Exactly. In a 4K screen, you have over 8 million individual pixels. On an OLED, every single one of those can turn on, or more importantly, turn completely off. Zero electricity. Pure black. That is where you get this idea of infinite contrast.
And that's the spec sheet victory. Infinite looks great on a box.
It looks great on a screen. When you watch a movie and the scene cuts the black, the room literally disappears. There is no gray haze. There is no backlight bleed. It's pure precision. And I know your counter-argument before you even say it. You're going to say OLED is too dim.
I was going to say it's historically been a vampire. It needs the dark to look good.
That was true in 2022. But in 2026, we have Tandem OLED. This is the game changer. We've seen this in the new iPad Pros recently, and now it's in the flagship TVs, like the LG G5 or the Panasonic Z95B. We should probably explain what this is, because it's brilliant.
It is cool tech, I'll give you that.
Okay, so think of a traditional OLED pixel like a little engine. To get it bright, you have to rev that engine way into the red zone. That creates heat, and heat kills the organic material. That's why old OLEDs were dim. They were protecting themselves. Tandem OLED, well, it stacks the layers. It's literally 2 or even 4 layers of emissive material stacked on top of each other.
Like adding cylinders to the engine?
Ideally, yes. Think of it like a V8 engine versus a V4. If you have a single stack, you're redlining a V4 to get up a hill. With Tandem OLED, you have a V8. You can cruise up that same hill, hit those same brightness peaks without stressing the components. You get massive brightness, competing directly with LED, but you're running the panel at a lower voltage per layer.
Which theoretically helps with the lifespan issues, which we will definitely get to.
It solves them. So you have the brightness, you have the infinite contrast, and you have the precision. Why would anyone settle for an LCD?
Settle is such a loaded word. Let me give you the perspective from the real world. You are talking about laboratory perfection. I'm talking about a Tuesday afternoon with the windows open. My position is that the LCD category gets a bad rap because people remember the cheap stuff.
The stuff they sell at the grocery store.
Right. The Edge Lit garbage. Let's just agree right now, Edge Lit LED is dead. If the light is coming from the sides of the TV, you just walk away. We are talking about mini LED.
Fair. Distinguish the difference for us.
So instead of a few big LEDs behind the screen, we're shrinking them down. We have thousands of tiny LEDs directly behind the panel. This is a direct lit array. This allows us to create zones. We can dim the dark parts and blast the bright parts. And when I say blast, I mean it. We are seeing consumer mini LEDs hitting 3,000, 4,000, even 5,000 nits of peak brightness.
Which is blinding. Who needs 5,000 nits?
Anyone with a window. That's the point. If you have sunlight streaming into your living room, that beautiful, delicate OLED contrast just gets crushed. You're just looking at your own reflection in the glass. A high-end mini LED is a light cannon. It punches through the glare. It creates a vibrant, punchy image that looks good at 2 in the afternoon, not just at 10 at night.
Okay, so we have the precision versus power dynamic established. But I want to drill down on that zones concept you mentioned, because that is the Achilles heel of mini LED and no amount of brightness can hide it.
You're going to talk about blooming.
I have to. Let's visualize this for the listener. Imagine a scene in a movie, let's say Gravity or Interstellar. You have a star field, a pitch black sky with tiny, bright pinpoints of light. On an OLED, the pixel for the star is white, and the pixel touching it is dead black, crisp.
Sure.
On a mini LED, you have zones. A zone might cover hundreds of pixels. To light up that one star, the TV has to turn on the entire zone. So what do you see? You see the star, but around it there's this faint gray halo, the blooming. It looks like the star is foggy.
Can I stop you there? Because you are describing mini LED from 3 years ago.
It's still inherent to the physics.
But the algorithms have gotten so much better. I mean, with tens of thousands of zones now, those halos are microscopic. Unless you're sitting 6 inches from the screen looking for errors, you just don't see it in the content.
I disagree. Let me give you a more practical example that drives movie lovers crazy. Letterbox bars. You're watching a widescreen movie, so you have those black bars at the top and bottom.
Okay.
In a dark room, those bars should be invisible. They should blend right into the bezel of the TV. But on a mini LED, if there's a bright explosion or a flashlight near the bottom of the movie frame, the light bleeds into the black bar. Suddenly, that black bar turns gray in that spot. It flickers, it distracts you, it takes you right out of the film. You cannot tell me that doesn't happen.
It happens, sure, on lower-end models. But on the flagships, it's barely noticeable. And frankly, I'll trade a tiny bit of blooming in the letterbox bars for the ability to actually see the movie when the lights are on. You're talking about these subtle artifacts, but let's talk about color volume.
Go on.
This is where the quantum dot comes in, the Q in QLED. These are nanocrystals that purify the light. When you push an OLED to max brightness, the colors tend to desaturate. The white subpixel takes over, and your bright red sports car starts looking a little pink or whitish.
That is a specific flaw of WRGB OLED. Yes.
Exactly. But with a powerful mini LED backlight pushing through quantum dots, you get color volume. You can have a red that is incredibly bright and incredibly saturated. It looks like real life. A neon sign in a mini LED TV looks like it's actually glowing, not just a picture of a sign.
I'm glad you brought up quantum dots because this is where your argument for LCD superiority starts to crumble. You're ignoring that OLED has stolen your best trick. We have QD-OLED now.
Samsung and Sony's tech?
Yes, they realized that white filters were the problem. So what did? They used a blue OLED stack, self-emissive blue light, and ran it through quantum dots to make the red and the green. There are no white filters, so you get that massive color volume you love, that neon punch, but you keep the infinite contrast. QD-OLED is literally the best of both worlds.
Is it though? Because you're glossing over a pretty massive flaw with QD-OLED that drives me up the wall.
The polarizer?
The purple blacks. We have to talk about this. QED-OLED panels, by design, they lack a polarizing layer. That helps with brightness, sure, but if you have any ambient light in the room, a lamp, an open window, the black levels on the screen rise. They don't look black, they look like a bruised plum.
That is a bit of an exaggeration.
It's not. You spend $3,000 for a TV because the guy told you it has perfect blacks. You get it home, turn on a floor lamp, and suddenly the dark shadows in the Batman look magenta. It's distracting. With a mini LED, black is black, or very dark gray, regardless of whether your lights are on or off. The contrast on mini LED is actually more consistent in a real living room environment than QED OLED.
I will concede that in a brightly lit room, the black levels on QD OLED can suffer slightly, but magenta is pushing it. It's a subtle tint. And honestly, if you care about critical viewing, you're likely dimming the lights anyway.
Dimming the lights anyway. See, that's the OLED lifestyle. You have to change your environment to suit the TV. I want a TV that suits my environment.
Which brings us to the biggest lifestyle argument you people always wield, the fear-mongering.
It's not fear-mongering if it's physics. We have to talk about burn-in.
I knew it. The ghost of 2017 returns.
Look, denial isn't a strategy. OLED is organic. Organic things rot, they degrade. If I watch CNN for 6 hours a day or I play a video game with a static health bar in the corner, those pixels are working harder than the rest. Eventually, they don't recover. You end up with a permanent ghost of the CNN logo on your screen.
That was a major issue almost a decade ago. But today, between pixel shifters, logo dimming algorithms, and heat sinks, it is incredibly rare. And going back to the Tandem OLED tech, because we are spreading the load across 4 layers, the stress on any individual organic molecule is a fraction of what it used to be. The V8 engine is cruising. It's not going to burn out.
Rare isn't impossible. And here's the thing you miss. It's about the anxiety. It's the babysitting factor.
Explain that?
If I buy a mini LED, I can pause the video game and go make a sandwich. I can leave the TV on the news channel all day for my dog. I don't care. I never think about it. But with OLED, there is that little voice in the back of your head. Better turn the screen off. Better not leave that HUD up too long. Do I really want to yell at my kids because they paused Mario Kart to eat lunch?
I think that anxiety is largely psychosomatic at this point. The TVs protect themselves. But I will admit, if you are using the TV as a PC monitor, where you have a Windows taskbar at the bottom for 8 hours a day, OLED is risky. That is a use case where static elements are constant.
Thank you. And a lot of people do that.
But let's flip the use case argument to gaming. Because if you are a gamer and you pick mini LED over OLED, I think you are making a mistake. And it comes down to one number, 0.1 milliseconds.
Response time.
Instantaneous pixel response. Because the OLED pixel generates its own light, it can switch colors instantly. There's zero blur. If you are playing a fast-paced shooter or a racing game, the motion clarity on an OLED it's unmatched. It is liquid smooth.
Liquid smooth? Sure. I won't deny the physics of response time. But LCD has come a long way. We have overdrive modes. We have 144 Hz, even 240 Hz refresh rates on some mini LED TVs. When you are updating the image that fast, the blur becomes negligible.
Negligible isn't good enough for the enthusiast. And you have the smearing issue on LCDs, specifically with dark transitions.
You mean the VA panel smear?
That and the red phosphor decay. To get those nice red colors on an LED TV, they often use a KSF phosphor coating. It glows beautifully, but it decays slowly. So if you have a red object moving across a dark background, you get this trailing ghost behind it. It looks muddy. OLED doesn't do that. It's surgical.
That's a fair technical critique. KSF phosphor is a double-edged sword. But again, I'm looking at the trade-off. Is that slight trailing worth the fact that I can game in a sun-drenched room without closing the blackout curtains? For most people, yes. And let's not forget, if you are a heavy gamer, HUD burn-in is back on the menu.
We're going in circles on the burn-in.
Because it matters. When you spend $2,000, you want it to last 10 years, not 5.
I think we've laid out the battlefield pretty well here. We have the precision artist versus the heavy-duty tank. But before we wrap up and give our final verdicts, we should probably zoom out. Because there is a technology on the horizon that supposedly solves all of this.
The Holy Grail, micro-LED.
We hear about it every year at CES. Micro-LED is coming.
And it is, slowly.
For the listeners who don't know, explain why this is the endgame.
So imagine taking the best part of OLED, the self-emissive pixels, where each one turns on and off, and the best part of LED, the inorganic, super bright, unkillable material. You mash them together. That is micro-LED. Microscopic LEDs forming the individual pixels.
So perfect blacks, infinite contrast, but brightness that can melt your eyeballs, and zero burn-in risk.
Exactly. It has no weaknesses. In theory,
But in practice?
it's a manufacturing nightmare. With an LCD or OLED, you print the screen on a giant sheet of glass. With micro-LED, you have to physically place millions of tiny LED chips onto a backplane. It's called pick and place. If you're making a 4K TV, you have to place 24 million subpixels perfectly. If one is misaligned, the panel is dead.
Which is why the only micro-LED TVs you can buy right now are the size of a wall and cost as much as a Lamborghini.
Right. We are seeing these modular tiles, Samsung's the wall, but for the average consumer, we are still 5, maybe 10 years away from that being affordable.
So we can't wait for micro-LED. We have to choose now.
We do.
So let's give our closing arguments. I'll go first.
The floor is yours.
Look, we have entered an era where good enough is incredible. Mini LED is good enough for almost everyone. But the debate isn't about good enough. It's about the best. And despite the brightness wars, despite the fear of burn-in, OLED remains the superior format for experiencing art. When you watch a film on a high-end OLED, especially the new Tandem panels, there's a depth, a three-dimensionality to the image that Mini LED just cannot replicate because of the physics of light. If you love movies, if you love the immersive experience, and you're willing to treat your tech with a little bit of respect, OLED is the undisputed king.
That was poetic, but I'm sticking with the pragmatist choice. I think the OLED superiority narrative is fading. Modern mini LEDs like the TCL QM7 or the Hisense U8 series are delivering 95% of that OLED performance for 70% of the price. And they do it without the baggage. They are brighter, they are colorful, and they are bomb-proof. You can put them in a bright living room, watch sports all day, let the kids play games, and never worry about a thing. To me, the best TV is the one that fits your life, not the one you have to fit your life around. And that is why Mini LED wins the battle for the living room in 2026.
Spoken like a true utilitarian. But I suppose that is why we have choices.
Exactly. Just don't buy an Edge Lit TV.
Amen to that. If you take one thing away from this episode, friends don't let friends buy Edge Lit.
Words to live by.
That brings us to the end of this deep dive. Whether you choose the ink deep blacks of OLED or the blazing versatility of Mini LED, just make sure you enjoy what you're watching.
And maybe close the blinds if you go with the OLED.
Ignore him. Thanks for listening to the debate. We'll see you next time.